All right, Learning Stories is an audio and video show where we interview a diverse set of learners from the 21st century. On each episode of this show, we interview a guest who has a story to share about how they acquired a set of skills and knowledge in a creative and innovative manner. In the process, we hope to uncover a new understanding of learning as conceptualized, imagined, and narrated by the guest in our show. Today's guest, Shilpi Chawla, is someone who I met at an event, and I recently got a chance to read a book written by her, Know Your Relationships. So, a little bit about Shilpi before we jump into this conversation. Shilpi is an author and writer whose body of work comprises of nonfiction books in the self-help and parenting genres. She has also released sets of well-being oriented deck of cards inspired by her travels. I will add links to these products and resources in the show notes. So if you do want to explore that, you can do that after the show. Her strength lies in listening to people's journeys to pick up cues, abstract information, and to help them make sense of it. Through Well-Being Whispers, she wants to help people discover their truths through published products, workshops, and a supportive community. She has been exploring healing modalities like Reiki, hypnosis, EFT, Vipassana, art of living, angel therapy, Buddhism, and is inspired by the teachings of Joe Dispenza and Louis H.K. So, Shilpi, thank you again for making time for this conversation. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you taking time from your schedule to do this. So, to start off, Shilpi, I wanted to just start off with an open-ended question. I know you've written so many wonderful books and you've conducted so many wonderful workshops. But where did all of this start? What was Shilpi like as a child growing up? Can you tell me a little bit about your world and your interests growing up?
Right. So firstly, thank you for having me here, and thank you for a wonderful introduction. Um, I think me as a child, Abhishek was just a very curious person. I loved to play. I loved playing very simple games, which back in the day, I think we all played. I would like, going down in the building, playing chore police, playing with my friends. And I loved writing small notes for my teachers to say thank you, say if we went for a school trip. And that was something extraordinary, right, from the regular school routine. So I always found myself writing these thank you notes after the trip, saying, just acknowledging something that they may have done. And yeah, I mean, growing up was fun. I watched the same shows, probably, which most kids did back in the day. Um, so there were these that time we didn't have Netflix and we didn't have these OTT platforms. So it was like that 4 to 4:30. There's this I Dream of Jeannie and Small Wonders, uh, very limited 25-minute Star Plus shows. So I loved watching them. Yeah, it was fun.
Very interesting. And like I know journaling and note taking is a big part of your practice, as
Mm,
a writer and a practitioner.
mm.
I think a note left at the right time can have such a powerful impact on somebody's
Yeah,
life.
yes, for sure.
And I know you've also written a book called Tiffin Notes and you conduct workshops related to Tiffin Notes, which I was able to see on your website. So before we get into that, Shilpi, like I'm curious about your time at, senior college or like university. What did you study? What were you interested in at that level? And yeah, I'm curious about
So
that.
yeah, I think I was very interested in learning about self-help through different authors. So like I remember reading Brian West's books, Many Lives, Many Masters, when I was like 16, 17. Like somehow those topics really interested me. And uh, I had my regular college, which was BCom, and I pursued MCom as an extra year ahead. But apart from doing that at a university level, I was also parallelly doing this college which had first time come to India from the UK called Wigan and Lee.
Mm,
It was their first, pretty much first year in Mahalakshmi in Bombay.
okay.
And it was a 4-year course that I did specializing in marketing. So it was postgraduate diplomas specializing in marketing in the last 2 years. And while I was doing that, I was also working as an intern. I was into events. I got absorbed by the same company full time once I finished my internship. So life was pretty busy, like high school and all of that, college time, because you're giving exams in two colleges. The
Mm,
first 3 years of BCom overlapped with the first 3 years of my Wigan and Lay studies.
mm,
So sometimes you're giving like 30 papers because that's the scope of, like, you're giving exams here, then you're giving exams there, then there are tuitions, plus you're working. So it was extremely busy. But nevertheless, I felt like this part of me was constantly wanting to learn about alternate modalities of healing. And I explored Reiki when I was like 16. So I would go to this teacher uh, who was very close to my house, and she had a clinic. So I would go and ask her, like, what can I do? Like, just voluntary help, like put her papers together or learn Reiki, like the symbol form of Reiki, and then practice it. And I think I went to the Vipassana center when I was about 17, 18, like the first time at Igatpuri. So that was 10 days course where you stay back, and it was very different. I think it's very different now, but
yeah,
that time it was more strict. Like maybe it is strict now also. Sorry, I don't mean to say it in any other way, but I felt like now it it may have been different in the way it is, but back then it was like I think it was just hard to get by
yeah,
those 10 days, like for me, because I was too young.
yeah,
But very interesting. I learned so much. There used to be lectures by Mr. Goyanka in the evenings
uh,
on the TV, which they used to play. So I was very curious to know more. Like, what can I learn? How can I apply this in my life? There was this constant drive that, I want to know, I want to know. So even art of living, like different levels, I remember learning about the Sudarshan Kriya, going for these discourses. Um, I remember learning about tarot from one teacher and then going to her teacher to learn an advanced, batch. Um, Again, practicing it. How can I maybe help somebody else? So, yeah, it was like a constant. I wanted to just learn and like get my hands on everything that I could.
that's fascinating, Shilpi, and I feel like it's very different and unique for someone to be so interested in that self exploration and to pursue so many different paths to understand that part of yourself. Also, I've I've not done Vipassana myself, but I know how challenging it can be to be in that space for 10 days only with your thoughts. And for you to do that at the age of 17 means you do have a level of self control and you know insight that may be quite different from a lot of people, because I've known people in their 30s 20s. I don't think it's an age related thing, but I think your thoughts at that period of your time are normally all over the place, because
Yes.
you're going to university, you're quite young, you're trying to figure out what you're doing in your life. So amazing that you explored those avenues at such a young age. Shilpi, I'm curious about where your journey with writing started. Why did you feel this need to put down your thoughts through books? And if possible, Shilpi, I just wanted you, if you could just move a little bit towards your right a little more. Sorry, your left. Your left.
Left.
My
Okay.
That's a little more. That should be fine. Yeah, and the video will get enhanced in the final recording, so
Okay.
we should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and where
Sure.
did that journey with writing start for you, Shilpi?
S- So, I think once I finished college and I was still working and all of that, there was a phase when I never thought I could write. I mean, I never explored English as a language. It was, of course, I went to an English medium school, and you take it for granted that you know English, like pretty much. But it wasn't like I'm going to write a book one day.
Yeah.
It I had different goals, and one of them was like I like books kind of thing. But much later, I found Louise Hay's book, Love Yourself, Heal Your Life. And that kind of was a turning point for me where I was like, wow, like she does courses and she does workshops. And I went to Birmingham. And at that point in time, I got my license. I did like a residential course with them for a week and then picked up the curriculum, got a license to teach uh, in India.
Wow.
So when I came back, I started facilitating smaller groups of workshops. Um, and at one point, I realized that, wait, maybe I want to write.
Mm,
And I started, I had these burning questions in my mind. So I started writing them down, and I didn't know from where's the answer gonna show up because they're like questions about life, which are like very deep. And I'm like, I have no idea who's gonna answer these questions to my satisfaction. So
mm,
I said, wait, maybe I'm gonna write these questions, and I would sit. That time I used to go to this cafe called the Indigo Delhi
mm,
at Shastri Nagar. It was right down my house. And I would sit and I would wait for an answer, and it would come through. So that was my first attempt at starting to write.
mm,
And it was a book called Paradise is Here. That's the title that I gave it. And it was a set of 21 questions with more things to it as a book. That book never actually got published. Instead, the book of intents, what you see online, is the first book that got published because my that time publisher, he was very interested in that work.
ah,
He said, these are great, and I want to publish this. I was still halfway writing it.
ah,
Uh, he said, finish it, and then we'll publish this. And I was like, okay, great. So, again, it was out of curiosity. It's not something I knew for sure. Intention was a word that came up everywhere. So
mm,
any text that you take up, actually, and or any teacher that I read, like whether it was Deepak Chopra or Patricia Crane or Wayne Dyer, or Louise Hay, um, or like Louise Hay is also a publication house by Hay House. So there were so many authors in that publication. Anyone I picked up to read, everyone in some or the other context spoke about intention. And even in our Hindi, like our text, they say sankalp.
mm,
Like, so I was always like, what is this intention and why can't I get it? So honestly, it was just an exploration that I was doing for 40 days. I gave myself like a deadline that I'm going to write one intention every day in the morning for 40 days, and it should not break. There should be like every day one intention. And I started doing that. Midway is when my publisher said, I'm going to publish this. And I realized that intentions hold a lot of power
mm.
because I could see subtly it would happen, what I would write would play out in a day. Um, and it was for me to recognize that. So, yeah, my journey pretty much started from there.
Wow. And it's like setting up an intention is such a powerful message to the world that this is what you really want to do. And sometimes articulating that for yourself can be the most trickiest thing. You know, Shilpi, can you give me some examples of when you set up an intention for your life and through your process you noticed that it was coming to life because of the way you set that intention up for yourself?
Yeah, of course. So it was like happening pretty much every single day when I was doing this 40-day process. Because when you write it out, so I would make sure that I'd fill up one page because I was still exploring it at that point. But even now, I feel like the process still remains the same. When you uh when you say that, okay, this is anything, you give me an example. Maybe I can help you set an intention right now.
Yeah, I mean, if we had to like play around with that, like, I'm really passionate about this podcast, and I'd like to, reach out to more people and understand, more people's journeys. That's something I'm um, really want to do at a personal level.
Okay. So why do you want to do it?
Hmm. I think because my background's in education, I've always been curious about how people learn within and outside institutions. And I realized that this podcast has been a way for me to understand that there are so many different ways to be learned. You can go to a
Mm,
university, you can learn outside a university, and at the end of the day, it really comes back to how are you helping other people? How are you serving other people? So you're acquiring these skills and knowledge to serve and add value to other people's lives. So that is the core intention, to understand how service has such different meanings in different people's lives, and then to go back to the stories that influenced and sort of shaped their understanding of what a meaningful life means to them.
okay, got you. When you feel that you have learned, understood, served through this podcast, how does that make you feel?
I feel very connected, Shilpi. I
Okay,
think that's the core sense, is that, I mean, somewhere deep within me, I believe that there is a commonality in all of our journeys. We are all going through similar struggles, similar, expectations, similar hopes. And I feel very rooted and connected to that core sense of being.
okay. So now everything that you said, um, I heard it, and I'm just framing the intention here. Tell me if this resonates with you. It is my
For sure.
intention to be connected and serve through meaningful stories. Stay connected, be connected. So, like, I feel like service is an important aspect, connection is an important aspect, adding value is an important aspect for you.
For sure.
So, yeah, so when you write it all down, right, it's basically you're picking up what matters, why you're doing it, with the feeling, connecting it in a sentence. And the
Mm,
main thing is when you say it out aloud,
mm,
it needs to add that passion, like this is what I really want.
mm,
So, and sometimes, like people tell me that it's not there, or, we don't know, or that passion is not there, which is fine. You
yeah.
just get it for the moment
Yeah.
when you're putting out your intention,
Yeah.
and that energy kind of helps um to play out your intention during the day. Like it comes back to you. So if I said it is my intention to stay connected and serve through meaningful stories,
Yeah.
or if I said it is my intention to stay connected and serve through meaningful stories.
Very different, right?
So it's just like it could be the most simple sentence that you're saying, but you're adding your own energy to it. That is what counts.
Wow. I
And yeah, sorry.
No, I really like that, Shilpi. And I think, like, without knowing too much about each other's backgrounds, I feel like if we were able to come to that common understanding, I see real power in, the possibility of your work. And I think that repetition of those intentions and even the process of even articulating this, honestly, no one's even asked me too much about the podcast and why, because it's often the other way around. So
Yeah,
thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that.
no.
But coming back to your journey, Shilpi, I'm curious about your publications and your travel decks, which I was able
Mm-hmm.
to experience at a recent book event, the
Yes.
Amsterdam deck. So can you tell me a little bit about the journey, your publication journey? You can tell me a story behind maybe each book and travel deck to help us understand
Mm-hmm.
your work a little better.
Each book or deck that I was part of is merely a work of intuition.
Mm,
Uh, I never sat and thought I want to do this. It was like this surge of energy where I had to do it.
wow,
There was never a moment where I felt like, uh, okay, now let's do this. You know, it was somewhere so rooted in intuition, intention that I couldn't give up on it. I had to stay committed to it and I had to see it through. So, for example, the first book, the Book of Intents, once it got uh, published, um, I got to know, like, it came out in 2014. 2015, I got to know that it's selected for Books of India category in the International Warsaw Festival.
wow,
And I received these pictures. So there were four pictures of four books basically from India, and very like renowned people, like, you know,
writers.
mm, yeah, like, and I was like, oh wow. I was like,
Yes.
I didn't do anything for it per se. Like, I didn't go pay money or, said ki I want to be here. But I
Mm,
didn't even know when the book was submitted by the publisher's end. And even in that space, he was very clear that we don't offer any money. We just submit the book.
got it.
If it gets selected, it's there. If it doesn't get selected, we would still not know about. It's just a process that the book is given, and if it's selected, it's selected. If it's not, it's not. So
Mm,
that process started from there, and I realized intentions hold a lot of power, which is when I started writing the second book, which was Love Your Life with the Power of Intention. And that book, I wanted it to be a little different. So it has a story format where, it's in the form of fill in the blanks so that someone can go deeper, create their own intention, give them something more to think about, not just intentions, but a storyline as well. So we added all of those elements, which are not there in the first book. So it became more like for people who are interested and are willing to dive a bit deeper. Then again, the following year, I got to know that that book is selected as part of Books from India in Frankfurt Book Fair. And I
wow.
was like, wow, send me pictures. And, my publisher was like, okay, yeah, yeah. He was like, again, he didn't know that it's selected because he was passing by and he saw it's his publication. And he's like, oh, this is her book. It was pretty much like that. Um, Know Your Relationships is the third book in the theme of intentions.
Yes.
Yes, that one. So that's the time I had to send my children to like the primary section,
Yeah.
kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I have twin boys, and I was very, very um scared. Like, how are they going to manage? Uh, Because my husband and me have been very hands-on parents.
Yes.
So I was just very like, how are they going to manage? How are they going to eat? I had very basic questions. Again, I didn't know from where to get answers.
Yeah.
But I had this idea that, we are constantly trying to teach them A for apple, B for ball, C for cat. And what if I could instead say A for allow, B for bliss, C for courage?
Yeah.
Um, so that was a download that happened, and I took it very much by the day. Um, because I think a mom's journey is again a very different journey, depending on depending on how you are placed, even in a family, with
Yeah.
help, without help, on a certain day. Things just change like by the minute. So, like, I remember the first A for allow. I
Yeah.
was actually in a play area with both my kids, and I was writing on my notes in on the mobile while I was watching them. This
Uh,
download again was like I couldn't not write it. So it
yeah.
was like A for allow, and then I wrote what I wrote. There was somebody um I hired to do the illustrations
Yeah.
from A to Z. I've never met him. He was from Bangalore, and I would brief him, and he would send me illustrations, and I like looking at it. I would just know, okay, this is it. Like this is it. This is it. Like so. Pretty much that's how we went ahead. And Embassy again, Sohan is an amazing guy. He published this book. This is the third book. Yeah. So that's how the third one happened. And a little before their kindergarten days, the first 40 days when, you come back home with the kids, um, because they were twin boys, and again, because we were so involved with them, my husband and me had like a sharing duty in the night, like 4 hours you sleep, 4 hours I will sleep, and we would be up. So while I was up and we had this, nappy change, one is crying, alternate things happening, I knew I'm going to be up any which ways. So might as well use that time. So that's the time dancing the dance, which is another book. And right now that book is available only in Kindle format. The hard copy isn't there anymore. I it just came. And that's a book which has been very helpful for moms because when the child is 0 to 7 years, your brain almost is, it's like another human being dependent on you
Yeah.
in a very different capacity.
Yeah.
So you go through so many emotional, mental questions depending on your personality. And those 40 nuggets in Dancing the Dance are about helping moms to say that you're doing okay. Like it's not your fault. You're doing well. Bless your, uh, day. Explore this, do that. So it's very, but it's honestly not written by me because I couldn't write it. It's written like it's just come through very powerfully.
Yeah.
Because I've also referred to that book at many instances, and
Yeah.
that book is like anyone, any mom can use it. It doesn't matter the age. Why I said 0 to 7 years is because that's the time you're very deeply involved in a
Yeah.
physical way with your child. Then your journey becomes more emotional, mental.
For
So
sure.
even now, if I had a challenge and I would say that, how can, like, give me an answer for this, and I would open the book randomly, it would pop to something, and it would make sense. So that book, back in the day, it was I did it via Amazon as an independent book publishing space. So I would call for copies from the US. Anytime anyone was going, I would call like 30 or 40 odd copies. And that book did really well.
Mm.
I had a lot of moms buying it. At that point, it was just a direct thing. They would just get it from me. I would sign it. I would do one-on-one workshops um, at LPQ because that was very close to my house in the morning when the kids were in school, much later.
Got it.
Um, so that was the fourth book. And then there was Letters to My Sons. which I put out during COVID. Um, again for moms. After that book came out, I had 1 year of free workshops that I did with moms every month. And I had these amazing experiences where I've had like a mom of much elder kid, a teenage kid, a kid who's just born. Everyone is writing letters
Wow.
to their child. So that book offered the moms ready templates, because sometimes you have so much you want to say, but then you're like, should I say this? Should I not say this? Should I, you know? So it was a very fulfilling journey, and that book is now available on as a hard copy on Amazon. Um, so I recently also did workshops where I've had a mom. So right now, I feel like sometimes it parents are also having a very individual journey. Like sometimes they're single parents,
Yeah.
and you're processing so much, uh, that's going on with work, with your child, with home. So
Yeah.
I feel like any parent can pick that up, and you can just start writing in the book.
Hmm.
The templates are such that you can just start writing your feelings. The idea is to get it out on the paper, and the prompts make you think. So that was the journey of letters to my sons, and that is applicable to daughters as well. It's just that I feel like my writing process, because I knew that 1 year, it takes about a year to have a book, from inception, ideation, to putting it out, to then sending it, or I mean, like knowing that where it's going to go once I'm done. So the journey is like almost a year.
Wow.
So book cover, uh, you know, all of that which follows through post. So I felt like, yeah, that book had its own journey. And while again it was an individual platform, it is available for anyone who wants to just get it. Um, I want to say an important point here for anyone who's listening to this podcast and who's a writer or in that space. Everyone has their own process of writing, and they should just follow that, like stay true to that. So like for me, a lot of times when I had a lot of work and I felt overburdened and overwhelmed with, I have to see kids, home, work, and I want to stick to writing. Writing can be a very isolated process by itself. So you tend to give up. You're like, it's fine, let me not, you know, forget it. Like it'll be least important.
Yeah.
But what helped me was, like, I would attach a song to a book sometimes to help me get through, or encourage me, or create enthusiasm in me. So if I'm listening to that in a loop, it would just help me move on, move on, move on, one page, second page, like that. So that was the other thing. And then there were superpowers. So I am very inspired by Shah Rukh Khan. And superpowers is a journaling process which is inspired, somewhere inspired by his interviews and what I've heard and listened very intently. I feel like SRK is a very intelligent man.
Yeah.
And there are like, I picked up on like very small nuances. Again, this work came through and I wanted to have a different take on journaling. I have spent a lot of time journaling through like the morning pages way. Are you aware of it?
I'm not. No.
Okay, so morning pages is a form of journaling by Julia Cameron, and that's a different way that you journal. But I wanted to have something where the person can delve deeper Again, there should be something written to inspire them. Then you do your journey of like writing your stuff, s- create a sort of blessing for yourself, which is the third part of every chapter in Superpowers. So it's one is author's inspiration, second is journaling, third is creating a blessing for yourself, and the fourth part is a intertwined journey of SRK relating to that superpower.
Interesting.
So that book gives the reader 21 superpowers, and they are nothing but attributes. So the first one is love, and it moves on from there to different aspects: acknowledgement, love, prayer, power, all of that. The last book that I wrote is called Tiffin Notes, which was in 2023, um, which is a set of perforated quotes which parents can tear out and put it in their children's tiffin boxes, snack boxes. Um, I feel like every child, excuse me, has such a different journey when they're in school. Um, and if even one child and parent has used that, and the child has got something, that book was worth writing for me.
Got it.
Uh, because honestly, like the demands that are there on a kid, like today, are different from the demands we had. But the emotional mental is such a delicate space, right? Sometimes you will never know what they are feeling or going through. And just that one different note can really like change the course of his thinking
Right.
for that day.
Yeah.
So that was the thought behind it. And I have been writing different notes since my kids were very small,
Okay.
like handwrite them. But I didn't have the time to write this book because there was so much already happening. And hence, I, when I felt like, okay, yeah, I can write it now, I did it.
I mean, yeah, like just listening to you, Shilpi, like, like it's such a long journey and it's very hard to condense it in like a short talk. I feel like each book deserves,
Yeah.
in itself for how you thought about it and brought it to life. But
Yeah.
I think the beauty of your journey is you first tried to, use these processes and intentions for yourself. And then you noticed that you could also create something that maybe your own experience could add value to other people's lives. So I feel that journey was so intuitive and vulnerable. Like even, when you spoke about the dancing book,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you were so vulnerable about realizing that sometimes you have to follow how the child is reacting to you. I think even over here in the allow chapter, you have this beautiful saying that stayed with me. I'm just gonna, read that. It says, "It is my intention to allow your giggles to guide me." So you are
Yeah.
almost letting the other person enter your space rather than feel like you have to control and, direct everything. And you're co-creating that experience rather than as a parent completely channelizing and directing it. I think, that part of your journey I feel was so powerful that you are able to experience something so deeply and then convert that into something that other people can also use in their life. So I feel like there is a element of service, an element of giving back in your work, and I feel like the universe or the world is just giving some of that love back to you when they respond, to your journey and your book. For the listeners tuning in, there Shilpi has an amazing website where she, and even on social media, she's quite active. I'm going to link her social media handles so that you can follow up this conversation and reach out to her there. I would recommend buying the books. I got this particular book, Know Your Relationships. There's also an amazing travel card deck series, which I also will link in the show notes. I was part of a session where Shilpi and a couple of others at a local book club were able to go through an activity with that deck. that I think was also really interesting for me at a personal level. So, Shilpi, just to respect time, and I know it's a
Yeah.
busy day for you as well. Just some last thoughts about how people can engage with your work and reach out to you and take this forward, take this conversation forward in a way.
Um, so one of the things that we do is well-being whispers, well-being.whispers, which you're going to link right in the Instagram uh, space, which is very like every month we think through what is it that we can put out, whether it's the decks, whether it's different notes, whether it's just a simple creative honoring money as an energy and making someone think, the stories that go there. Everything is thought of and then put. So I think anyone who wants to connect, that would be the best way where they can follow the page, go through the old, uh, posts. Uh, if it's a reel, it's just see what interests them. And then in the link tree there, every book, every card deck is linked if someone wants to get it. There is something called free resources, which are downloadable. There are two files there. And there is a WhatsApp community link also. So that will directly take them to the WhatsApp community link that even you are part of. And that's how they can stay in touch. I mean, any questions are always welcome.
Wonderful. So please do follow up this conversation with the resources and the books and decks that Shilpi has available on her website and social media handles. And for the people tuning into this episode of Learning Stories, stay tuned for more such stories of amazing young people doing interesting things in their own context to make this world a better place. So until next time, keep learning.
Thank you.